The right to bear arms may be changing forever. What does the Supreme Court's decision mean for gun ownership across the nation? Is this the end of restrictive gun permit systems, or just the beginning of a new legal battle? One ruling could flip the script on how we think about the Second Amendment and reshape gun rights across the United States. Chapter 1. The Shocking Ruling. The Supreme Court's latest ruling has sent shockwaves through the country. This isn't just another legal challenge. This decision could permanently alter the landscape of gun rights in the U.S. It all started with Hawaii's controversial move after the Bruin ruling. Hawaii tried to implement stricter rules, essentially rewriting the entire meaning of public carry. It was a twist on what the Supreme Court had already made clear, that no state could hide behind complicated systems to deny people their Second Amendment rights. Hawaii, however, flipped the script. Instead of allowing public carry unless restricted, they required explicit permission from property owners. Without permission, you were committing a crime. And they weren't alone. States like California, New York, New Jersey, and Maryland all took this same approach, hoping to bypass the Supreme Court's ruling by reinforcing permit systems rather than loosening restrictions. They built taller walls where the Supreme Court had just knocked them down. But Hawaii's approach was different. It crossed a line even the Ninth Circuit couldn't defend it. Chapter 2. The Supreme Court's Challenge. So, what happened when this reached the Supreme Court? For the first time in years, the court was faced with a direct challenge to its authority over gun rights. Hawaii's "ask permission or you're banned" law was not only legally questionable, it was a full-on confrontation. The state had turned the very idea of permission into a key part of the Second Amendment, a complete inversion of what the court had ruled in Bruin. What happened next shocked everyone. The Department of Justice, which usually defends restrictive gun laws, shifted its stance. Instead of rushing to support Hawaii's law, the DOJ essentially admitted that Hawaii's law wasn't about property rights. It was designed to undermine the Second Amendment itself. And then, it got even more surprising. The DOJ asked to participate in oral arguments on the challenger's side, something that's incredibly rare. It sent a clear message. This law wasn't just flawed, it was unconstitutional. But the real shock came when 26 states joined in, all standing against Hawaii's law. Red states from every corner of the country came together to argue that Hawaii's model was unconstitutional and posed a threat to national consistency. With the DOJ on one side and 26 states on the other, the court couldn't ignore this. The battle lines were drawn. Chapter 3. Why this case matters. Why did this case matter so much? At its core, Hawaii wasn't just challenging the right to carry. It was trying to change the entire foundation of what it means to bear arms. They turned the burden of proof upside down, making the right to carry something that had to be earned, not assumed. It's like asking every citizen to get explicit permission just to exercise a constitutional right. As Hawaii's case gained traction, the question became, if Hawaii's law could stand, what would stop any other state from doing the same? What would happen if every state turned the right to carry into a permission slip? The Supreme Court couldn't let this challenge to the Second Amendment stand unanswered. Hawaii didn't just challenge the law, they flipped it on its head. Chapter 4. The Ninth Circuit and the Split. The Ninth Circuit, known for pushing the limits of gun control laws, upheld Hawaii's restrictive measures. But their decision was controversial. It created a split between circuits, with some courts saying, "You can't flip the permission system upside down," while others agreed with Hawaii's interpretation. This split left the Supreme Court no choice but to intervene. Once the case was before the Supreme Court, the stakes were higher than ever. It wasn't just about Hawaii's law anymore. It was about whether the government or the citizen holds the power to define fundamental rights. The court had already ruled that Second Amendment rights were individual rights, but could the government still restrict those rights by imposing burdensome, complex systems? As the case continues, we'll be watching to see if the court will uphold the traditional understanding of the Second Amendment, or if it will allow states to create their own definitions of what gun rights look like. Chapter 5. The Nationwide Impact. This is more than just a legal battle. The outcome could affect every state's gun laws, from Hawaii to New York to California. If Hawaii loses, it's not just a single state that will be impacted, it's the entire nation. States with similar laws would face immediate challenges. Now, let's take a step back. This ruling doesn't just impact Hawaii. It's part of a broader national movement to either expand or restrict gun rights. As we head into 2026, questions loom. What does a world without gun permits look like? Will other states follow Hawaii's lead or align with the national standard? Are firearm permits really disappearing in 2026? The truth is, it's already started. In the end, this case could set the stage for a nationwide shift in gun policy. But it's not going to be a fast change. It will unfold gradually, state by state. Some states will rush to comply with the new rules, while others will try to delay or resist. But make no mistake, the momentum is shifting, and the question isn't whether the rules will change. It's when. Before this decision, states relied heavily on permits to regulate firearms. But now, that system is on shaky ground. The financial consequences are already being felt. From permit application fees to mandatory courses, the revenue from these systems is now drying up. States that built entire budgets around permit systems are scrambling to adjust. Chapter 6. A new era dawns. This ruling is just the beginning. A new era is dawning, one that could reshape the entire framework for how gun rights are viewed and protected across the United States. For decades, the government has controlled access to firearms through a complex web of permit systems and regulations. But now, the legal landscape is shifting in favor of the individual, of personal liberty, and of the fundamental right to bear arms. The implications of this ruling go far beyond Hawaii. If the court's decision stands, it could set a new standard for gun rights across the country. States that rely heavily on restrictive permit systems may find themselves forced to reassess their approach, as the federal government and the courts push for a more consistent, uniform approach to Second Amendment rights. For many, this represents the culmination of years of legal battles, a clear victory for the people over bureaucratic overreach. But for others, it's the start of a new fight to preserve what they see as necessary safeguards in the interest of public safety. Whether you're for or against these changes, there's no denying that we are entering a new chapter in the ongoing debate about gun rights in America. What comes next will not be smooth sailing. States that have relied on gun permit systems for revenue will have to adjust to a new reality. They may need to find new ways to regulate firearm ownership, new avenues for ensuring public safety, without relying on the same old bureaucratic systems. This will take time, and there will certainly be challenges along the way. But one thing is certain: the conversation around the Second Amendment is far from over. If you're interested in how these changes will unfold and what they mean for your rights, stick with us here at Firearm Legal Briefing. This is a defining moment in American legal history, and the road ahead will be full of twists, turns, and new challenges. Subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading everyone.